Welcome to Art Talk Tuesday, episode 10. As promised, this week I am dealing with another scratchboard piece, so we're staying with black and white today. The piece I have up is entitled God of the Oppressed. The scratchboard piece. It's matted and framed, as you can see. The dimensions are 24 by 30 in the frame. The actual dimensions here are 19 by 23, I believe, something close to that nature. So this piece, once again, like I said, is a scratchboard piece. This piece took me approximately 93 hours of actual scratching. We're not talking about research. We're not talking about actually locating the images and doing other things that I do up front. We're just talking about actual scratch work. It was 93 hours just on this piece alone. That's why I said a lot of people who do scratchboard work in much smaller sizes, because it can be so time intensive and so labor intensive with this technique. So obviously, also that means that the price of these pieces are higher because it takes a lot more work for me to complete them in a lot more time. Probably spent about 3 weeks of actual research, looking at images, thinking about the concept, doing research on some readings, some other things that I look at, praying about the image, doing a bunch of different sketches. I usually do about 10 to 12 small sketches, maybe about that big, maybe about 2 by 3, till I work out about 5 or 6 compositions that I think will work, and then I do those up maybe about 4 by 5, something like that. Then after I got those where I want them, I may do 2 or 3 of those that are with color. So using just color pencil or something, just kind of getting the idea where color is. That didn't apply to this one, obviously, since it's in black and white, but that's kind of just my general process. So let's jump right in and kind of talk about this piece. This piece was inspired basically by my understanding of Jesus. Actually, I completed it sometime just before Christmas, and wanted to deal with a biblical theme, a biblical idea, this whole idea of Jesus. You know, some people say, well, Jesus didn't exist, Jesus isn't real. Some people say, well, Jesus wasn't the Son of God, this and this. I don't really think that's the real question. Particularly in the climate that we're in now, the question is not about Jesus per se. The question is, who's Jesus? That's the real question we need to understand. Are we talking about the Christ of faith, which we look at and we see often in the religious tradition? Or are we talking about the historical Jesus as a historical figure and what he stood for? And unfortunately, those two can often be miles apart, if not almost in some cases diametrically opposed to one another. So that's really what we're looking at here. So obviously this piece is entitled God of the Oppressed. You see the center point of the whole image is this image of Jesus here, the Black Christ. He's got the crown of thorns on his head. Here we see a halo, which is a symbol of spiritual power, spiritual enlightenment, which I've also kind of changed the shape of here. It's kind of supposed to be a cross in the background, if you can see those details. He's got his arms outstretched. You see the pierced side here, blood dripping. You see the spots where he was nailed. Actually, would have been his wrist and not his hands. If you know anything about actual crucifixion, if you nail through here in the hands, most likely it's just going to tear through. People fall right off. So they usually do it down here. So you can see those images here, wrapped in a cloth. You can see the silhouette of the cross here, symbolizing suffering, sacrifice. And then here, this fish symbol, which we often see in the Christian tradition, the symbol of the fish being the whole idea of Jesus said, I will make you fishers of men. So playing out here. And you see also what I've done is indicated that the outstretched hands touch. They reach out into the plane and touch the figures around it. You see this hand is touching the hand of the little boy here. This fish here is reaching out and touching, going into the figure of the slave, touching the figure of the young man here, touching the peace signs of this young lady here who's in protest. So this whole idea of God, or Jesus being a God of the oppressed, we must remember that he was killed by the government under charges of sedition and other things. He was murdered by the government. This was an execution. We want to forget that. So looking at this whole idea of Jesus here as the suffering one, who what? God of the oppressed. God has a preferential option for the poor and oppressed. If you read the Bible accurately and you read it correctly, God does take sides. All this neutrality stuff is a bunch of crap. So God does take sides, and usually that side is on those who are oppressed, who are suffering. And so just dealing with this whole idea here. And so what I've done is kind of a montage of different images of different, actually different cultures and different people. So not just African Americans, but different cultures and people in their struggles for oppression and struggles against solidarity, just suffering in general. So we have here, we see a young protester. Actually, I picked this up some similar version of this from a photo I saw around BLM. Young protester here, arms up, peace sign. You see over here, these people carrying signs. This young man, his chest has the Black Power symbol on his t-shirt. And here we have a quote from Luke chapter 4, I believe. It reads, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me to bring good news to the poor, release to the captives, to let the oppressed go free." This gentleman here, older gentleman, reminiscing back to the protests of the 60s, and this is from Exodus chapter 3. "I have seen the misery of my people. I have heard their cry. I know their sufferings." Here we go back to Luke with this sister is carrying a poster that has a quote from Luke and the Magnificat, if you know anything about in the Catholic tradition about the Magnificat quoted by Mary. And so it says, "He has brought down the powerful from their thrones." So just playing about these ideas here. You see these pieces, we got people with their fists outraised, hands up in protest of what is going on. This is kind of a classic. You've seen these images, classic photos of, they like to talk about Africa, particularly back in the day when there was a whole thing about USA for Africa, people starving, these children suffering due to malnutrition. Okay, so we got these children here, and you see their arms are reaching out towards Jesus, the one who understands them, the one who suffers with them, the one who suffers for them. Sister here with her hands up, everything is intermingling. These ideas here for these two photos actually came from whole idea about women in Africa who were protesting oppression. You see this woman is veiled here, okay? Whole idea of suffering. Here we have figure of the KKK, hooded figure here. You see we've got the symbol there. And what is he doing? KKK figures here looking out. Then we've got the cop here merging into this figure. So they become one. Merging in this KKK figure, you see he's got this noose black woman hanging from his arm as he's punching what? At this person who is meditating, who is actually an Asian person. Okay, so I'm just playing around with different ideas here, different symbols of oppression, different symbols of suffering. As we go around this picture here, we see this is a Hitler symbolic figure. So Third Reich Hitler, but here he's being contrasted by this figure of this other person who has their hand up in defiance. So Hitler's hand is raised, and this figure's hand is raised in defiance. Here we see a suffering figure, child holding a child who has died, who is dead, been wounded, injured, however you want to interpret it. Here also we have this figure here in the jail clothes. You see his hands have handcuffs here. He's standing with his back out, looking out of the bars as he is incarcerated. So we're dealing with issues of mass incarceration, particularly in the United States, or incarceration for those who are fighting for their rights. And then we have this silhouette of another figure here who is incarcerated, whereas we have the cop here, or it could be, you know, military person shooting and is already collecting another head, which he's holding here, and shooting to collect another head. So we're playing with these ideas here. We have definitely military. Okay, you can see the machine gun here, military, foreign oppression, foreign occupation, even the military being dispatched into, we've got the reserves now, what have been dispatched in this country to shoot and kill their own citizens, who are mostly, not always, but mostly peacefully protesting. Here from the edge of his gun, you see another noose with a black person hanging from there. This image here is from one of the ideas about the Buddhist monks, the monks who were setting themselves on fire in protest. I don't know if you remember about that back in the day. Here we have another army figure who's shooting, right? Once again, here we have an enslaved black woman. See, she's wearing her chains, enslaved, and then these folks are crying out. So just dealing with this whole idea here. Then you have three figures in protest here, pointing toward what? This individual here who has the peace sign. So playing with a lot of different ideas here. This is one of my favorite pieces, one of my most powerful pieces, I think. I want to do some more around this idea, and just wanted to share that with you. If you like these videos, you find them helpful, please like or subscribe to my YouTube channel, Damon Powell, Artist and Theologian on YouTube. You can press like. Also, you can look at my website, damonpowell.com. This image is available for sale. The price of this image is $2,600, matted frame, ready to go. I have prints available from my website starting at $44. So, thank you for tuning in for Art Talk Tuesday. Peace.